Alright, so over the years, I have printed hundreds of 3D prints, and I thought I'd make a quick video about some of my favorites. So here are my top 5 favorite 3D prints. Alright, before I go on, first I want to mention, you're probably noticing a huge jump in the quality of my videos. That's because of this new camera that I have. It's a Canon DSLR camera. For those of you who are wondering, it's a Canon 550D. I'm going to be using it now on for all of my YouTube videos. Now, onto the list. Alright, so first on the list is this Pokemon Go. Don't know how to pronounce it, so I'll put the name of it on screen here. This was the first large 3D print I've done on my my one up here. It's probably the largest print I've done on it, actually, because of a small build space. And I really did enjoy how it turned out. Next up would be this gear bearing by, I believe, Emmett designed this. Now I also printed this on my one up, customized it to only be 3 gears. And have a really, really large space between each gear because my one-up is so inaccurate, I needed to adjust it, and now it's like super, super loose and pretty much useless. But then when I got my Ain't It AH Chinese kit, I could print at a much higher quality, and I printed another one with all 4 gears, and I think it turned out beautiful. Next up will probably be this 3D printed iPod case that I made out of flexible filament. Now I printed 3 different versions. I kept changing the dimensions stuff to bestly fit my iPod, and I also have a little emblem of one of my favorite artists on the back of it, which is pretty cool, and one of them I have a little 3D printed logo on it, but I took that out because I think it ruined the look, but other than that I think it turned out pretty well. The first one I printed didn't have any holes for the buttons at all, so you couldn't really use the iPod and it would turn off by itself because it was always holding down the power button. It was pretty messed up. The second one, it added the buttons, and it turned out okay-ish. Not the best, but it worked, sort of. I know the volume buttons weren't quite lined up with the actual volume buttons. Other than that, it was okay, though. And then the final version here, which is actually incomplete, but I'll go on to that in a minute. I just removed the logo and aligned the hole for the camera. This didn't really work out that well. I'm just not a good enough CAD user to be able to design something this intricate. I did learn a lot doing it, though, so that's why I'm putting in one of my favorite prints, because I think the idea is really cool, but it definitely wouldn't call it a success, more like a learning failure, but still, it was pretty cool. Alright, next up is this gear cube, also I believe by Emmett. I think it was originally by Emmett, but there have been lots of redesigns of this gear cube, and if you're wondering why it's burned up, we'll get to that in a minute, but ever since I knew about 3D printing, I've wanted to print one of these. It's just been like, I dropped it. It's just been one of my huge inspirations for what 3D printing is capable of. So I've always just really wanted to make these, and none of my printers have been accurate enough to make them. I haven't had the right plastic, it's been so annoying. But this year I finally had the right plastic, the right printer, and I printed one, and it was beautiful. It turned so good, it still turns so good. And then I was making a short film, which I probably won't ever release because it turned out really bad, but, you know, it was fun still, even though it turned out bad. This was one of the props in it, and it was like a meteorite that came down. Yeah, kind of a weird story. Basically, it had to look like it was, like, burnt from entry to the earth, so we poured starter fluid lit it on fire, and it turned out pretty good. That one shot was awesome, the rest of the movie was terrible, but that one shot was pretty good. I thought it was a goner, which I didn't really care, I was going to print another one, but then I took the prop and it was all solid, and I snapped it back into place, and it just turns freely as ever, so yeah. Alright guys, so those are my top 5 favorite 3D prints, but I still want to share with you one more 3D print that didn't quite make the list, but was still worth mentioning. And that is this lop-eared bunny. Now this has some major issues. The top of the head and the bottom of the shape did not turn out very well. But what I am really excited about is the back was very, very smooth. I printed at 100 microns, so it was a pretty good print. Also, I think the model is super cute. But the model does need some work for printing. The bottom of it isn't completely flat, so it actually is like the entire thing is on supports, which is kind of a bad design. So I might redesign it sometime, but for the most part, I think it turned out okay. Now, you notice a lot of the prints on this list haven't been a whole lot of successful prints. Now, trust me, I've printed a lot more prints that have turned out so successful, no problems at all, but most of these prints have been mostly problematic prints, which kind of makes you wonder, you know, why would those be my favorite prints? Well, the reason why is that the prints that turn out so, I mean, I like good prints just as well as the next 3D printer enthusiast. It's so satisfying to see a print you spent so long on just turn out so perfectly and so beautiful. I mean, that is just awesome. But the thing is, when everything goes right, you don't really learn a whole lot. I mean, most of those prints that have turned out really good were because you had so many fails, and after every fail you learned something new. And with that new knowledge, you're able to increase the quality of your 3D prints. So without all those fails, the good prints wouldn't have been possible by any means. So in my opinion, I like failed prints almost more than good prints because I walk away with more knowledge than I had when I started. You know, if a print turns out perfectly, no problems, what have you learned? But when a print comes off spaghetti and there's not connected to the build plate, well, you know that you need better layer adhesion. You learn more when prints fail, and that's why I don't really mind when prints fail anymore. I mean, it's never fun, but I've learned just to accept the failure and see what I can learn from it. I'm Josiah. Thanks for watching.